One dinner turned into a confession that destroyed everything I thought was real. Started out so simple, almost ordinary. A casual invitation, spoken with ease, yet carrying a weight I could never have imagined. "It's just dinner," she said with a smile that seemed too innocent to question. At the time, I didn't see any danger in it. Why would I? She was someone I trusted, someone I thought of as a family friend, maybe even a sister figure. My wife had known her for years. She'd been around during birthdays, anniversaries, even Sunday dinners. She knew our children by name, laughed with us in our home, and carried herself like someone who belonged. So, when she asked me to join her for dinner one evening, nothing extravagant, just a quiet meal in a local restaurant, I agreed without hesitation. After all, what harm could there be in sharing a plate of food and some light conversation? I thought it was nothing more than friendship, a gesture of kindness, maybe even a way to escape the stress that had been weighing me down. But even as I sat across from her that night, I noticed something different in her eyes. It wasn't the familiar warmth I was used to. There was something heavier there, something unspoken. She fidgeted with her glass, tapped her fingers nervously on the table, and smiled as if she were hiding a storm behind her lips. I should have paid attention to those signs, but I didn't. I brushed them off as nerves, or maybe just the weight of whatever personal story she wanted to share. The food came, yet neither of us seemed to have much appetite. We poked at our meals, exchanged small talk, and tried to maintain the illusion that this was, indeed, just dinner. But under the table, the tension grew. I felt it in the silence between words, in the way her gaze lingered longer than before. And then it happened. She leaned forward, lowered her voice, and spoke words that would shake the foundation of my marriage. First, I thought I had misheard her. The room suddenly felt smaller, the walls pressing in as her confession poured out. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat louder than the last. I wanted to stop her, to cover my ears and pretend this wasn't happening. But it was. What she revealed wasn't just a secret. It was a betrayal wrapped in honesty. A truth I wasn't prepared for. A truth that would follow me home, haunt my every step, and eventually drive a wedge between me and the woman I loved. Looking back, I realized that the dinner was never just dinner. It was the beginning of the unraveling, the spark that lit a fire I couldn't control. The night I walked in believing I was safe, and walked out carrying a burden too heavy to bear. That invitation, so casually given, was the moment everything began to change. The moment her words left her lips, I felt the air change. It was as if the restaurant disappeared around us. The quiet chatter, the clinking of silverware, the faint music playing in the background. All of it faded, drowned out by the weight of her confession. I sat frozen, my fork hovering uselessly over my plate. My chest tightened, and for a second, I struggled to breathe. She had dropped a truth so heavy, so devastating, that it felt like the ground beneath me was cracking open. Her eyes filled with tears as she spoke, her voice trembling yet determined. She wasn't just revealing something personal. She was unraveling a web I didn't even know I was caught in. Every sentence she whispered drew me deeper into a darkness I hadn't expected. She wasn't asking for forgiveness, nor was she asking for understanding. She simply wanted me to know, to carry this truth with me, whether I wanted it or not. And now I did. I remember gripping the edge of the table, my knuckles white, trying to steady myself against the storm raging inside. My mind screamed at me to walk away, to leave her sitting there with her truth, to run back to my wife and pretend none of this ever happened. But my body betrayed me. I stayed. I listened. I let her finish. The hardest part wasn't hearing her confession. It was realizing the consequences it carried, because this wasn't just her secret anymore. It was mine too, and I knew the moment I walked out of that restaurant, I would be carrying it home like a curse. For days afterward, I tried to act normal. I laughed with my wife, played with my children, went to work, and followed the motions of daily life. But inside, the secret gnawed at me. Every time I looked at my wife, guilt twisted in my chest. She didn't deserve to be kept in the dark. She didn't deserve the silence I was forcing between us. Yet, how could I tell her? How could I shatter her heart with the truth I had been handed? It wasn't my sin, but it had become my burden. And silence, I thought, would protect her. Silence would keep the peace. But silence is a dangerous thing. It grows heavier each day. It builds walls between people who once stood close, creates distance where love once lived. And soon, my wife began to notice. She noticed the way I avoided her eyes, the way my laughter felt forced, the way my thoughts drifted elsewhere even as she spoke. She noticed the weight on my shoulders, though she didn't yet know what caused it. And her noticing became suspicion. The truth I carried was like poison. It didn't just stay inside me. It seeped into everything around me, corroding the life I had built. I thought I could hold the secret forever. I was wrong. It started with little things. My wife would ask me a simple question. How was your day? And I would answer too quickly, my words rehearsed, my smile thin. She would brush her hand across mine at the dinner table, but instead of holding on, I would pull away, pretending to reach for my glass of water. These were small, almost invisible gestures, but in a marriage, the heart notices everything. At night, when the house was quiet and the children asleep, I would lie beside her, my body rigid, my thoughts consumed by the confession that had been handed to me like a curse. She would turn to me in the dark, her warmth seeking mine, and I would feel the ache of distance between us even as we lay inches apart. That distance wasn't measured in space, it was measured in secrets. I wanted to tell her, God, how I wanted to. I would rehearse the words in my mind. There's something I need to share, something I learned that I can't unhear. But the words never made it past my lips. Fear held me captive. Fear of breaking her heart. Fear of changing how she looked at me. Fear of setting a fire in our marriage that I could never put out. Instead, I carried the secret alone. And carrying it began to change me. She noticed. Wives always notice. She saw the way my eyes lingered too long in thought. The way my laughter didn't reach my eyes. The way I seemed both present and far away at the same time. At first, she asked gently, is something wrong? But as days turned into weeks, her questions sharpened. What are you hiding from me? Who are you really with when you say you're at work? Her doubt pierced me deeper than anger ever could. She thought my distance was betrayal, but the truth was worse, it was silence. And silence has a way of growing so loud it drowns out love. One evening, as we cleaned up after dinner, she finally broke. She slammed the cabinet door shut, her hands trembling as she turned to me. I don't even recognize you anymore, she said, her voice cracking. You're here, but you're not with me. And if there's something I should know, you'd better say it now. Her eyes burned into mine, demanding answers. I opened my mouth, but nothing came. The secret sat like a stone in my throat. All I could do was lower my gaze. Ashamed. That silence, that single moment of failing to speak, hurt her more than any words could. She turned away, tears spilling down her face. And I realized then that keeping the secret wasn't protecting her. It was destroying her trust, piece by piece. The irony cut deep. I hadn't betrayed her, but in trying to shield her from the truth, I was pushing her away. And so the cracks in our marriage spread wider. And with every day that passed, I feared that one more silence, one more hesitation, would be enough to break us completely. It was late on a Saturday night when everything finally came to a head. The children were asleep, the house wrapped in silence, but inside the walls of our bedroom, the storm I had been avoiding finally broke loose. My wife stood at the foot of the bed, her arms crossed tightly across her chest, her face pale with a mix of anger and heartbreak. She had been patient, more patient than I deserved, but her patience had run out. I can't keep living like this, she said, her voice sharp but trembling beneath the weight of her emotion. You're not the man I married anymore. You look at me, but it's like I'm invisible. You smile, but it doesn't reach your heart. Tell me what's going on. Who is she? Her words struck me like a slap. Who is she? She thought the distance was another woman. In a cruel twist, there was another woman, but not in the way she imagined. I rose slowly from the edge of the bed, my chest tight with panic. I wanted to reach for her hands, to assure her that she was still the center of my world, but my arms hung heavy at my sides. "There is no one else," I said, my voice raw. "There's nothing between me and anyone. I swear to you." "Then what is it?" she demanded, tears brimming in her eyes. "What secret are you hiding from me? Because I can feel it. Don't tell me it's just stress or work. I know you. I know when you're carrying something, and it's killing us." Her words were daggers, not because they were cruel, but because they were true. She did know me, perhaps better than anyone else ever could. She knew there was a weight on my shoulders, and she knew it wasn't one I could bear alone. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. She waited, her breaths uneven, her hands gripping her arms as though to hold herself together. I opened my mouth, the truth burning at the back of my throat, but fear seized me again. If I told her, everything would change. Not just for us, but for the fragile circle of people connected to that dinner, that secret. It wasn't just mine to tell. So I faltered. I lied by omission. "It's nothing, love. I'm tired. I'm overwhelmed. But there's no secret. Please, believe me." Her face fell. She studied me for a long moment, her eyes searching mine for something honest to cling to. What she found instead was hesitation, and hesitation speaks louder than words. She turned away, wiping her cheeks quickly as if to hide her tears. "If you can't trust me with the truth, then maybe I can't trust you at all." The door closed softly behind her, but the sound echoed like thunder inside me. And that night, as I lay awake alone, I realized the cruelest truth of all. The secret I had been protecting wasn't just destroying me. It was tearing apart the only person who had ever truly loved me. The days that followed felt heavier than any I had known before. Our home, once filled with laughter, now echoed with silence. The little gestures that used to come so naturally, her hand brushing mine as we passed in the kitchen, her smile meeting me at the door, her head resting against my shoulder at night, had vanished. In their place was distance. Cold, aching distance. I tried to pretend things were normal. I forced smiles, asked about her day, played with the kids on the living room floor. But beneath it all was a fracture that widened with each unspoken word. I could feel it when she looked at me. She was searching for the man she used to know and finding only a shadow. One evening, she sat across from me at the dinner table, the untouched food between us growing cold. Her eyes, red from crying, fixed on mine with a quiet intensity. "You've left me no choice," she whispered. "If you won't tell me the truth, I'll have to live as if I don't know you anymore." Her words were like ice. I wanted to reach across the table, to beg her not to give up, to finally unburden myself of the secret I carried. But again, fear bound me. I swallowed the words, and in that silence, I watched something in her break. That night, she didn't come to bed. She stayed in the guest room, the closed door between us a wall thicker than stone. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, realizing just how much damage my silence had caused. It wasn't just about the secret anymore, it was about trust. And without trust, love withers. The breaking point came a week later. I returned home from work to find her suitcase by the door. My heart lurched as I stepped inside, the air heavy with finality. She stood in the hallway, her hands trembling as she clutched a folded sweater to her chest. "I can't do this anymore," she said softly, her voice breaking. "I've begged for honesty, for something real from you, but you keep shutting me out. I don't know if it's another woman, or if it's something darker, but whatever it is, you've chosen it over me." Her words gutted me. I wanted to scream that she was wrong, that there was no affair, no betrayal, only a secret that wasn't mine to tell. But to her it didn't matter, because whether or not I had been unfaithful, I had been dishonest. And dishonesty had driven a wedge between us that love alone couldn't close. Tears burned in my eyes as I reached for her hand. "Please," I whispered, my voice cracking. "Don't go. You're all I have." She looked at me for a long, heartbreaking moment, then slowly pulled her hand away. "Then you should have trusted me enough to let me in." And with that, she walked out the door, taking with her the warmth, the laughter, and the life we had built together. As the door closed, I stood frozen in the silence, realizing that the secret I thought I was protecting had just cost me everything. The house felt unbearably empty after she left. Her absence wasn't just physical. It echoed in every corner, every room, every sound that was no longer there. The rhythm of life we had built together was gone, leaving behind a hollow shell. Mornings were the hardest. I would wake instinctively, reaching across the bed for her warmth, only to find cold sheets. The silence of the kitchen was deafening without her soft humming as she prepared breakfast. Even the children's laughter felt different, tinged with confusion, with the unspoken question of why their mother no longer kissed me good morning before they left for school. I tried to function, to carry on as though nothing had shattered, but the truth was I was unraveling. At work, my mind wandered aimlessly, replaying the last look in her eyes before she walked out. At home, I would sit in the living room long after the kids had gone to bed, staring at the door as if she might suddenly appear, suitcase in hand, saying she had changed her mind. But she didn't. She never did. The weight of the secret pressed down heavier than ever. What had once been a burden I thought I could carry alone had now destroyed the very foundation of my life. I realized too late that silence had been my greatest mistake. I hadn't protected her from the truth. I had abandoned her in the dark. Nights became a torment. Sleep refused to come, and when it did, it was restless and filled with dreams of her face, her voice, the sound of her laughter that I feared I would never hear again. I would wake in a cold sweat, heart pounding, the taste of regret bitter on my tongue. The children sensed the change. One night, my daughter crept into my room, clutching her blanket, her small voice trembling as she asked, "Daddy, did Mommy leave because of me?" Her words broke me in ways the silence never had. I pulled her into my arms, holding her close as tears streamed down my face. "No, sweetheart," I whispered into her hair. "This isn't your fault. Mommy loves you more than anything." But as I rocked her to sleep, I wondered if she still loved me. Alone, I began to see the truth clearly. Secrets don't just belong to the one who holds them. They seep into everyone around, poisoning love, trust, and hope. My silence had not only cost me my marriage, it had scarred the family I had sworn to protect. I stood at the edge of a choice. I could continue down this road of silence and regret, letting the distance harden into permanence. Or I could finally face the truth, speak it no matter the consequences, and fight to rebuild what I had lost. But even as I thought of telling her everything, another fear gnawed at me. What if it was already too late? What if the secret, once revealed, didn't heal, but destroyed whatever fragile thread still connected us? And so I sat there in the quiet of our broken home, torn between fear and love, knowing that the next step I took would define not just my life, but hers as well. It took me weeks to gather the courage, but I finally realized there was no other path forward. The silence had already destroyed so much. Continuing to carry the secret alone would finish what little was left. I had lost my wife's trust, my children's sense of security, and nearly my own sense of who I was. The only chance at redemption was honesty, even if it came too late. One evening, I drove to where she had been staying, her sister's house on the other side of town. My hands trembled on the steering wheel, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might break before I even knocked on the door. When she opened it, her expression was guarded, her eyes tired. She didn't invite me in right away, but she didn't close the door either. That small mercy gave me hope. "I need to talk to you," I said quietly, my voice unsteady. Not with excuses, not with half-truths, but with everything. We sat in her sister's living room, the silence between us sharp and uncomfortable. She folded her arms, waiting, and for the first time I told her everything. The dinner, the secret that had been confided in me, the burden I had carried in the misguided belief that keeping it to myself would protect her. My voice cracked as I admitted how wrong I had been, how my silence had built walls instead of shields. Her eyes glistened as she listened. At times she looked away, as though the weight of it was too much, but she didn't interrupt. When I finished, the room felt heavier, but also clearer. The truth was no longer hidden. It stood between us, undeniable. "You should have trusted me," she said softly, her voice trembling. Do you know how it feels to share a life with someone and still be shut out? You weren't protecting me. You were protecting yourself from my reaction, from the consequences. Her words were a knife, but they were true. I bowed my head, tears welling. I know, and I can't take back the hurt I caused. I can only ask you to see that my silence wasn't born of betrayal. It was born of fear. But fear isn't love. And if I have any chance of proving I still deserve you, it starts with this honesty, even if it costs me everything. For a long time, she said nothing. The clock ticked on the wall, every second stretching like eternity. Then, slowly, she reached for her face and wiped her tears. I don't know if I can forgive you yet, she whispered, but I can see you're trying. And maybe that's where we start. Relief flooded me, not because everything was suddenly fixed, but because there was a path forward, however fragile. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. It wasn't a promise of restoration, but it was hope. And sometimes, hope is enough to keep love alive, even after it's been broken. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Silence can be louder than words, and secrets, no matter how well-intentioned, can destroy the very people we love most. Honesty may hurt, but it also heals. And if you love someone, trust them enough to let them in.